Namo Amida Butsu. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whenever you are, in whichever realms of existence you are, whatever mind states you're in, whatever conditions you're in, you are welcome to my channel. Today, I'm going to do some readings or some reading. I want to read the three Pure Land Sutras for my channel individually. I'm going to try to get through them. Well, we'll see. We'll see if I can get through them in one sitting. I don't know if that's possible for the large sutra or the visualization sutra. I think it would be possible for the smaller sutra, but we'll see. Anyway, the reason I want to do this is because uh, I'm for the past few months, couple of months, 2, 3 months, whatever it's been, I've been reading at the instruction suggestion of Reverend Ray. I've been started a reading of the Pure Land Sutras through and through. So reading all three. I'm reading all three sutras through and through, and then reading the collected works of Shinran. That's my goal. All in one reading. That's what all my reading is focused on now. All my listening to the Dharma is focused on right now is doing that. The reason being, he's suggested this. It's an approach he suggests to everyone. Who is a sincere inquirer, a sincere Jodo Shinshu follower, or what have you, to for a true, direct, um, full, better understanding of the Jodo Shinshu teachings. Just read the three sutras and the full collected works for yourself. That's his approach. And the reason I'm doing this now is because Kyokan went to talk to Reverend Ray about my situation, my case with kind of hitting the wall again with the Jodo Shinshu teachings and all that goes with that. And so he suggested for Kyokan to suggest to me or instruct me to do this, to read the sutras and the collected works of Shinran in this way for this reason, with this approach, to help with that. So that's what I'm doing. And today, like I said, I'm reading from the digital version. So this is obviously the three Pure Land Sutras, BDK, Numata version, translation version of them. And this is and I'm reading this is not for profit. This is for educational purposes, and under free use. As it says here, this is the digital version of the original publication. This digital version of the original publication is distributed according to the Creative Commons attribution, non-commercial share alike 3.0 license agreement and the provisions stated on the website and you can see the website there. So this is the DBET PDF version, copyright 2010, and provided by the BDK Namata Center. And I'm not going to try to read. I'm not going to read the editorial, the forwards and editorial notes and things. There's lots of really good information there. I suggest you read them yourself. It is important to read that and be aware of it, but just for time's sake, and also my pronunciation of Japanese is horrible, so I don't want to be just mispronouncing people's names. The people that that work so hard in this on this project, the Namata Center project, translation project. I just don't want to be mispronouncing the names and so on. So I'm not going to read all of that. But I think I will read the see if they in this version, if they have the summary, I will read. Actually, I might read the translator's introduction. Might do that. Bear with me a sec. So no, yeah, okay, yeah. I think I will at least read, because there's not a lot of things I can mispronounce in there's and I say that I just don't want to be mispronouncing millions of words, if you know, and especially people's names, honored people's names. I just don't want to be mispronouncing them, and I know I will, so I just don't want to be doing that. So to minimize that, I'm gonna read, instead of reading the forewords and all of that, which, you know, I'm just going to read the translator's introduction, but please read the forwards and the other editorial notes and things for yourself, because it's very important. And this the translation project of the Namata Center, and then, you know, undertaken through the BDK and all of that, and that's, I believe, ongoing, for translating all of these, all of the, you know, trying to translate the full, you know, which is quite an undertaking, the full, you know, Buddhist canon, basically. And we're very grateful for that, because it's made, you know, it's made all these texts of Buddhism available in English to so many people, which is so great. It's such a good thing. So anyway, and we're very, very grateful for it. So, translator's introduction. The Pure Land School is a form of Mahayana Buddhism that centers around the Buddha of infinite light and life, known in Sanskrit as Amitabha and Amitayus, in Japanese Amitofo, and Japanese Amida. This Buddha is said to dwell in the land of utmost bliss, Sukhavati, far to the west of this world, beyond the realm of samsara. With boundless wisdom and compassion, Amitabha perceives the problems of those who are suffering from karmic results in samsaric existence and provides means of liberation for them. The most important scriptures of the Pure Land School are the three texts presented in this volume. One, the Sutra on the Buddha of Infinite Life, also known as the Sutra, as known as the larger Sutra on Amitayus, uh, abbreviated to Larger Sutra. The Sanskrit text is popularly known as the larger Sukhavati Vyuha Sutra. Two, the Sutra on the Visualization of the Buddha of Infinite Life, abbreviation Contemplation Sutra. And three, the Sutra on Amitayus Buddha, also known as the Amida Sutra, or the smaller Sutra on Amitayus, abbreviated Smaller Sutra, or Shorter Sutra, I've heard as well. The Sanskrit text is popularly known as the smaller Sukhavati Vyuha Sutra. These sutras were chosen by Honen of Japan, 1133 through 1212, and called the three Pure Land Sutras. Actually, there are many other sutras and discourses that mention Amitabha and his land of bliss. According to Professor Kotatsu Fujita, the mention of Amitabha and his Oh, sorry, I went back a sentence there. According to Professor Kotatsu Fujita, the total number of such scriptures in the Chinese Buddhist canon is 290. The Chinese canon, which was collected and edited in Japan under the title of Taisho Tripitaka, or Tripitaka, contains 2,184 texts. Thus, more than 13% of all the scriptures held to be authentic in the Chinese tradition recognize this Buddha and his land. And that's a lot, actually, 13%, because that's a lot of sutras and texts. Amitabha was mentioned from the Amitabha was mentioned from the advent of the rise of Mahayana Buddhism in India, and eminent exponents of Mahayana metaphysical thought, such as Nagarjuna and Vasubandhu, took refuge in Amitabha and extensively promoted Pure Land faith and practice. From the beginning, worship of Amitabha was clearly distinguished from Hindu worship of gods because it had its roots in the Bodhisattva ideal. The Pure Land of Amitabha was conceived of as more real than this ephemeral world of ours in samsara, indeed. Pure Land sutras and discourses were transmitted to Central Asia and then to China. The first Chinese translation of the larger sutra was produced in the middle of the 2nd century. Of the 5 extant translations of this sutra, the last was made in 980. Thus, the whole history of Chinese Buddhism was strongly characterized by Amitabha worship, and the Mahayana schools that developed in China recognized the importance of this Buddha and adopted into their systems practice and faith centering on Amitabha. Many discourses and commentaries were uh, composed by dedicated Pure Land masters, and many images of the Pure Land were produced. Among lay followers, as well as monks and nuns, the practice of repeating Amitabha's name, called Nianfo, Japanese Nembutsu, was and is enthusiastically performed by many Chinese Buddhists at home and abroad, to say nothing of the millions of followers of Pure Land denominations that developed in Japan, Korea, Vietnam, and other Asian countries. As a higher practice of Pure Land Buddhism, meditation on Amitabha and his Pure Land, based on the Contemplation Sutra and the Pratyutpana Samadhi Sutra, has been widespread from ancient times. Many devotees successfully followed the prescribed method and attained samadhi of visualizing Amitabha and his Pure Land. Today, it is impossible to follow the precise and complex method of visualization, simplified or today, as it is impossible to follow the precise and complex method of visualization, simplified or syncretic forms of meditation are practiced by various groups and individuals. Contrary to the impression of the general public, Pure Land Buddhism is not a belief in ignorant people of the past, is not a belief of ignorant people of the past. It is very much alive and still continues to supply inexhaustible spiritual energy to intellectuals as well as less educated people. Indeed, it does. But its doctrinal systems have yet to be fully studied from various perspectives. Despite the importance of the 3 Pure Land Sutras, which are the primary source of devotion to Amitabha, Western scholars and Buddhist followers had long been without a readable English translation of these sutras until publication of the first edition of this volume in 1995 as part of the BDK English Tripitaka series. We are now privileged to publish this revised 2nd edition, which includes notes and an appendix. I need to say something really interesting. I just realized that was about the year 1995 was about the year I came across that article in Tricycle magazine about Pure Land Buddhism. And Joro Shinshu. That was my first introduction to it, was that article. I think it was that year that I saw it. At least that was when I read it. I don't know if it was published that year in Tricycle magazine, but that was, I think, the year I saw it in Tricycle magazine. And that was my introduction. That was the seed in this lifetime, anyway, the direct seed, I should say, that was planted through, Amitabha's the natural working of Amitabha's vow in my life, in this lifetime, in this human lifetime, which is very interesting. This was published that year. So maybe that's why that article came about. I can't remember the details of that. Maybe it was kind of in the, it was in the Buddhist press a bit that this was happening, and that could have been why, that because it was published, that there was this there was more awareness coming about Pure Land Buddhism because that was being published that year, perhaps, maybe. But I'm very grateful for that's another reason to be grateful for this project, because I think perhaps this project inspired, was kind of what drove or was the reason that article appeared in the first place. So even more reason for me to be grateful for this project, the Numata translation project that started happening all those years ago in the 80s. I love the 80s. Another reason to love the 80s. Anyway, they try to tell me stop living in the 80s, Gankai. Stop living in the 80s, Scott. And all I can say to them is no can do. No, I can't go for that. Anyway, sorry. Sorry. It's okay, you can cringe now. Anyway, um one of my favorite memes. Anyway, back to I digress. I digress. So coming back. So next paragraph. We take this opportunity to express our heartfelt gratitude to Dr. Yehan Numata for initiating this project. Indeed, heartfelt gratitude indeed to Dr. Yehan Numata. Indeed. Our sincere thanks are also due to the editorial committee and the publication committee for their time and labor in editing the manuscripts and seeing them through to publication. Again, indeed, much gratitude, much metta, much gratitude. Those interested in the theoretical clarification and doctrinal development of the Pure Land Buddhism are directed to the introduction to the 3 Pure Land Sutras, a study and translation published by Nagata Bunshodo, Kyoto, 1994, 1995, and 2000 revised edition. After I'm done with the Reverend Ray, following the instructions of Reverend Ray and reading through the 3 Pure Land Sutras and the full collected works, that's the next thing I'm going to read. I had decided when I read this, the translator's note. But anyway, the selection, next paragraph, the selection, or sorry, not the selection, the section numbers supplied in this translation follow those in the 1988 edition of the 3 Pure Land Sutras in the Jodoshinshu Seitan, page 3 through 128. Concerning proper nouns, the names of the Buddha's disciples and those well-known Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are given. Concerning proper nouns, the names of the Buddha's disciples and those of well-known Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are given in Sanskrit. Otherwise, they are translated. The only exception is that the names of the Buddhas in the smaller sutra, of which Sanskrit correspondence are fairly well established, are all presented in Sanskrit. The Buddha of infinite life and Amitofo are rendered as Amitayas. Elsewhere, this Buddha is referred to as Amitabha. Of course. Okay, I'm going to read the outline. This is a good little summary because it gives it some structure as you're going through it, especially the large sutra and the Contemplation Sutra. It just gives you a kind of structure to it to keep in mind as you're going through. Again, it's best to read it for yourself, but this summary, like I said, it helps me with just keeping in mind the structure of it is what I'm trying to say, because especially the larger sutra and the Contemplation Sutra are pretty long and pretty involved and intricate, and you kind of sometimes are like, wait, where are we? Who's talking? What is happening? So anyway, so the outline of the 3 sutras. The larger sutra. At one time, Shakyamuni Buddha was staying on Vulture Peak near Rajagra. Let's start again. At one time, Shakyamuni Buddha was staying on Vulture Peak near Rajagra, the capital of Magadha in northeast India, accompanied by 12,000 monks and innumerable bodhisattvas. Each bodhisattva had already attained distinguished virtues and supreme wisdom. At that time, Shakyamuni's appearance was extremely majestic and brilliant. Ananda, the chief disciple in the audience, observed that the Buddha must be dwelling in the supreme samadhi and contemplating all the Buddhas. Shakyamuni praised Ananda's pertinent observation and began to reveal the wonderful Dharma. In the distant past, Buddha Dipankara appeared in the world, followed by 53 other Buddhas, of whom the last was Lokeshvara, world sovereign king. Under his world sovereign king Buddha, under his guidance, a king renounced the throne and became a monk named Dharmakara, storehouse of the Dharma. After praising the Buddha with a hymn, section 5, he expressed his resolution to become a Buddha. At his earnest request, Lokeshvara showed him innumerable Buddha lands, which he studied to make plans for his own Buddhahood. Excuse me. After 5 kalpas contemplation, Dharmakara formulated his resolution as the 48 vows, section 7. After proclaiming the vows, he presented the gist of them in a hymn, section 8. In order to fulfill his vows, Dharmakara performed various meritorious practices for many eons and finally became a Buddha known as Amitayus, infinite life. His land is full of glorious adornments, and his light is the most brilliant and majestic of all Buddhas. His lifespan is also immeasurable, and his disciples are innumerable. Those born in his land enjoy the highest spiritual bliss and attain supreme physical glory. Part 2 of the sutra begins with the description of how the 11th, 17th, 18th, and 19th vows have been fulfilled, sections 22 through 25. There it is clarified that those who, having heard the name of Amitayus, rejoice in faith and are mindful of him will be born in the Pure Land and dwell in the stage of non-retrogression. 3 grades of aspirants who sincerely perform meritorious practices and are mindful of Amitayus will, on their deathbeds, see him and a host of sages welcoming them to the Pure Land. The virtues of Amitayus are so glorious that all the Buddhas praise them. Innumerable bodhisattvas from the other Buddha lands visit the Pure Land to pay homage to Amitayus and receive teachings from him. Shakyamuni describes in a hymn, section 20. Shakyamuni describes this in a hymn in section 27. All the bodhisattvas in the Pure Land are endowed with majestic physical characteristics and distinguished spiritual powers. Dwelling in the highest bodhisattva stage, they display wonderful Buddha activities. They thus attain excellent virtues and are beyond compare, section 30. Shakyamuni then began to address Maitreya in particular. Shakyamuni then began to address Maitreya in particular thus: people of the world are ignorant and driven by passions, and so are destined for the evil realms of samsara, where they undergo endless suffering, section 31. The Buddha's admonishment continued. People are given to anger and greed and are prone to the 5 kinds of evil. If they refrain from immoral acts and strive to do good, then with the merits they so acquired, they will be reborn in higher and happier states of existence and finally reach nirvana, sections 34 through 40. The Buddha told Ananda to worship Amitayus. At once, Amitayus manifested himself with a majestic appearance, and his light shone everywhere, so that Ananda and all the others in the assembly clearly saw the Pure Land. They witnessed 2 types of birth. One, that those born with that of those born from within the lotus flowers, and 2, that of those remaining in the lotus buds. Those aspirants who have accepted the Buddha's wisdom with faith are to be born by instantaneous transformation and fully enjoy the highest bliss, but those with doubts must remain in the lotus buds for 5,000 years. Section 43. The fault of the harboring the fault of harboring doubt is shown by the parable of a prince confined in a palace room as a punishment for his offenses. Section 45. There are a great number of bodhisattvas in the other Buddha lands who visit the Pure Land. 14 Buddha lands, including the Saha world, which Shakyamuni land, which is Shakyamuni's land, are mentioned. Sorry, let me read that again. Sorry. There are a number of bodhisattvas in other Buddha lands who visit. There are a number of other bodhisattvas in other Buddha lands who visit the Pure Land. 14 Buddha lands, including the Saha world, which is Shakyamuni's land, are mentioned. Because of the special importance of this sutra, Shakyamuni promised that even after all the other sutras become extinct in the world, in the future, he would preserve it in the world for 100 more years. Let me read that again. Because of the special importance of this sutra, Shakyamuni promised that even after all the other sutras become extinct in the future, he would preserve it in the world for 100 more years. The sutra ends with a description of various spiritual benefits received by different audiences. Okay, now we're on the summary of the Contemplation Sutra. Prelude. Shandao of China, 613 through 681, gives his commentary on this sutra as Shandao of China gives his commentary on this sutra, gives in wow, sorry guys, sorry folks. Let me try one more time to start this prelude, just one more time. Shandao of China, 613 to 681, gives in his commentary on this sutra a detailed account of the misfortune that befell the royal family of Magadha in northeast India, which led to the Buddha's preaching of this sutra. Shakyamuni had a cousin, Devadatta, who was greedy for fame and wealth. Seeing the Buddha receiving many offerings from King Bimbisara, he wanted to take over the leadership of the Sangha. He first learned supernatural power from Ananda, which he displayed to Prince Ajatasattu. Thus, he won the respect of the prince and also received sumptuous offerings from him. Devadatta then approached Shakyamuni and suggested that the Buddha retire, but was rebuked for his stupidity. Angered by this, he next incited Ajatasattu to usurp the throne. Seeing that Ajatasattu hesitated, Devadatta appointed the prince's broken little finger Devadatta pointed at the prince's broken little finger and told him the following story. A long time ago, King Bimbisara was anxious to have an heir. Having heard from the soothsayer that a certain hermit living in the mountains would be reborn as his son 3 years later, the king immediately sent a message to the hermit suggesting that he terminate his own life, but the hermit refused to do so. The angry king ordered the messenger to kill him if the hermit still refused to commit suicide. On his death, the hermit vowed to take revenge. Soon, Queen Vaidehi became pregnant. The king rejoiced, but was horrified to hear from the soothsayer that she would bear a boy who would harm the king. So he told the queen to give birth to the baby on the roof of the tower and let it drop to the ground. She did as she was told, but the baby miraculously survived, and with only with only damage to his little finger. Devadatta told Ajatasattu that the king had thus tried to kill him a second time. Enraged to hear this, the prince imprisoned the king and left him to die. So quite a tangled web of karmic karmic causes and actions and going back on people. And I think I'm going to just leave it there. So for now, because everyone's coming home now. So thank you for listening. I'll read the outline of the sutra and the rest of the outline of the outline of the Contemplation Sutra and the outline of the smaller sutra in the next edition, and maybe go on to the start the larger sutra. I'm not sure, but anyway, thanks for listening. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namandabu, 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 Namandabu. Take care. All the best to you.